together they were in the founding team of NACUE, which is an organization which helps promote entrepreneurship through universities. And they'll take us through their story. On stage we have some of the CEL executive board members as well, Michael Tyrimos and Abdrea Solomonides, who will be joining the discussion. We hope you enjoy it. Thanks.
After you. Yeah. Is there anything to click through with?
So I think it's my turn to welcome you. I've already welcomed some of you in the morning. And this discussion, because it's in the section of entrepreneurial environments and ecosystems, it's the greater example of how you build an ecosystem. The guys over here, and what Michalis neglected to mention is that also Michael Tyrimos was with them in NACUE as well, and that's why he has a lot of insights to offer since he's also a self-founding member. I will coordinate, so write down all your questions because you're going to have a lot of them. And I'll give the floor to Kostas.
Can you all hear me okay? Yeah? So welcome everybody. Thanks for having us here. This is particularly important for me being here because CEL came to me and asked me to advise them because we've been through a similar journey. And I'm both Greek and I'm Cypriot as well. So I'm very proud of all of you coming out here and supporting these guys. So thank you first and foremost. Today we'll be talking to you about building a high-growth social movement and what that means and how you can kind of do the same, but through case studies. And this is probably the first time we're also going to touch on what we didn't do well as well. Bear with us. So, I can't see this. So me and Matt have been involved in enterprise since 2007. Matt probably about 2005. Yeah. So I'm a enterprise champion and startup advisor. So I've been involved in a lot of things. So I was president of Warwick Entrepreneur Society. I was working for the business school there. I was one of the founding team of NACUE and then later a director on the digital side. I now judge competitions for UK Trade and Investment, which is the government, Shell Livewire Entrepreneur of the Year Awards. And I just love helping startups because at the end of the day, startups are what makes your country great and the potential to be great as well. And startups are the ones disrupting markets. So I really love advising tech startups, but also social startups, social enterprise startups at the beginning of the journey. And I'm a social entrepreneur by trade, so I love things that have a social impact and address a social need. So
I think I'm mic'd up. Yeah, this is working. So hi, I'm Matt Smith. I've been essentially promoting entrepreneurship for several years now. When in university studying computer science, I set up and ran the Lancaster Entrepreneur Society and put on events there. I spent a year in a government-backed campaign promoting entrepreneurship to universities. I then co-founded NACUE in 2009, spent 3.5 years building it before heading off to do freelance consulting work. I now run the Centre for Entrepreneurs think tank, and it's a non-profit organisation founded and chaired by a very high-profile serial entrepreneur in the UK. And essentially, we are undertaking research and campaigns to promote entrepreneurship and to really educate politicians as to what they need to do to boost entrepreneurship in the UK. As part of that, we also took on Startup Britain, which is a national enterprise campaign set up 4 years ago, and that's been interacting and engaging probably a few 100,000 people across the UK for the past 4 years to encourage them to start businesses. So that's my background.
Cool. Do you want to? Sure.
Well, I joined at the very last minute, so I don't have a slide. So I'm Michael. Basically, I was the president at the King's College London Business Club. I joined NACUE as an advisor to the board for 2 or 3 years. 3 years. I founded the Cambridge University Venture Capital and Private Equity Club. I was a member of the Cambridge University Enterprise Network Group. Then coming to Cyprus alongside a great team, I had the opportunity to co-create the Cypriot Enterprise Link, which aims to promote entrepreneurship in Cyprus and among young Cypriot and people who live in Cyprus, and connect the Cypriot talent. And also the interim CEO of a new startup called eventdate.io. And also I co-founded a startup in San Francisco called HustleX, which brings insights from entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley to the rest of the world. And it's great to reunite with the gentlemen after 3-4 years.
4?
It's been a long time, so yeah.
The coordinator. I don't have a slide.
And a founding member itself.
After the introduction,
Sorry.
I will finish with
Oh yeah, we're finished. Okay. Okay, so this session's about building a high-growth social movement. So I want to take us to, what a high-growth social movement is, why it's important, and how it should be done, or how it could be done, and how we've done it, and what we've learned, and what didn't go well as well. So effectively, a high-growth social movement is a collective. It's a collective of groups or communities, of individuals that have this shared passion, this shared desire to change something in their society or even in their community. They see that there is a need to help people in their local community or their regional, national community, and they seek out others that are exactly like them, that see this need, and they're fueled by change in its core essence. They see something that everybody around them doesn't see straight in front of their noses, and being part of one of these movements is fantastic, because you find people that you didn't think you would find. You find people that challenge you in both a good one and a not so good way, to improve, to continually improve, to improve for the sake of addressing this social problem that you're trying to get at. So the way of doing that, really, when you have no resources or limited resources, let's say, is about taking those individuals and taking their networks and any resource that's available to them, whether that's space or some sort of partnerships or affiliations, and fueling all of that, pooling it all together and saying, what are we trying to achieve? Why are we trying to achieve it? And who do we know that can help? Who do we know that can put their backing behind this, that can put some financial benefit beside it? Who can give us some space? Who can give us some mentors? Who can give us some support for the audience that we're engaging, so that they can do their venture or project or community? But it's also more than that. It's also about helping to create exponential change, because a social movement, effectively, particularly the ones that are about groups, as was about groups, and Selling Away is about groups with its nodes as well. If you can, do you know what? If one of you goes away from this talk and says, I'm going to start a social movement, which then creates more activity beyond this event, that then at those events there is one person that's sitting there going, I'm going to start a business that creates jobs and changes the world, then we, as leaders of a social movement, did our job. So that's why I got into all of this, and I'm sure that's why these guys as well. So, oh, I see something else. Something that's really important is banging the drum. So banging the drum is wherever you are, talking about Cell. These guys, wherever they are, they're talking about Cell, talking about the startups that come out of Cell, talking about the case studies of the change leaders, and every opportunity there is to network, but not network in the traditional sense, but any opportunity to help and influence and partner. is a way to bring some partnership that will benefit CEL and its members and its audiences and everything that goes after it. Okay, so we're going to tell you about NACUE. So NACUE stands for the National Association of College and University Entrepreneurs. So basically, Matt will tell you the history about NACUE, but NACUE is a non-profit organisation, a registered charity in the UK that seeks to empower student enterprise leaders in universities that are running student enterprise societies, which we'll explain to you what they are, to run activities that engage young people that want to start businesses or want to develop entrepreneurial skills to help them further themselves in their careers. Maybe that's in a corporate or a small to medium enterprise, or maybe it's their own venture as well. So it's about supporting the leaders behind these groups or these social initiatives within the local ecosystems, representing young entrepreneurs, enterprising students, or people that have a passion to change something, advocating for them, which Matt will talk through, but also connecting them within their local ecosystem. So let's say within their local university, with partners that can help their movement, with other leaders in their region. So, for example, I was in the Midlands with Warwick Entrepreneurs when I was president there, and we were working with Nottingham entrepreneurs on a conference facilitated through NACUE. So both the leaders, which was us and my team, got an opportunity to work with fantastic people that were just like us in another region, and we were learning from them, and they were learning from us. And our members, we took them by a coach to a conference in Nottingham, and they were not just seeing and meeting and working with the normal people that they work with on a daily basis in their university. They were seeing a diverse range of people, and creating connections and partnerships and so on, and just interesting conversation. So NACUE has started as a grassroots movement for young entrepreneurs by young entrepreneurs, and it came up with the vision of creating building the most entrepreneurial generation, which is a bold statement, but one that we felt was adequate for what we were trying to achieve, and one which still holds true, and some of the work that's been done proves that as well. So, let's see, can we move on? Can you hear us? So, to give some context on, you're probably wondering what an enterprise society is for those people that don't know. An enterprise society is basically, if to define off here, it's an informal, extracurricular and student-led organisation that supports entrepreneurial and enterprising students. So it's effectively a club. It's a club of people that go and get involved in some activity in order to be inspired. So it might be a conference. So there's a speaker. They want to be inspired. They want to learn something from those people, because the people sitting on stage or standing on stage have done something that they also want to do, and they respect whether they've got a high profile or not. It's about connecting, so finding mutually beneficial opportunities or people, and connecting in the local sense, but also the national sense as well. So they run different types of activities. So in Warwick Entrepreneurs, we were running business plan competitions, like Dragon's Den style competitions, but we found that our counterparts in Essex, for example, were running an accelerator. Then in Oxford, they were running a big conference on social entrepreneurship. And as leaders, by seeing that potential, that there's people exactly like me that are doing stuff, that inspires me, but it also teaches me as well of what we can do different and what we can change. So they were running business plan competitions, networking events, hackathons, accelerators, all that kind of thing. And I'm just going to pass over to Mike to talk about KCLBC.
Yeah, one thing to emphasize is that a student society, which is brought as an example right now, may be belonging to a university student body, but it certainly extends beyond that, way beyond that. So, for example, in KCLBC, we had created various ideas, various competitions. One of them was the Idea Box, an enterprise competition for undergraduates, which was actually created by Jack Smith, who spoke earlier this morning. And we didn't just see that our initiative was inspiring change in this micro world of students, let's say. It was also leading to subsequent startups and early stage networking. I think someone said it today as well, that I'll give you an example. Jack, who was speaking this morning, he met his co-founder, Zain, at King's College London and through KCLBC, and they started their company in the UK, then they moved to Silicon Valley, they started Vanguard, which raised, as Jack mentioned earlier, 25 million. So these kinds of organizations have an impact beyond the university. They provide you firstly with good skills on how to start a startup, on how to interact, on how to be a member, an active and valued member of an ecosystem. And secondly, they provide you with a solid networking, which should not be undermined. So I believe that sums it up.
Yeah. And out of Warwick Entrepreneurs, there was Joel Gascoigne, who founded Buffer, that some of you might know. So the kind of next generation entrepreneurs are coming out of these kind of ecosystems and spotting opportunities to find their co-founders or start things or learn and get things wrong before they get on their journey. So Matt's going to talk through now some of the context behind NACUE.
So this was 2008, 2009, and really looking at the university sector, societies were there, not particularly developed, but really it was the age where people our age had been running through school and college with some enterprise activities, some basic competitions. We had that thirst. We'd been watching The Apprentice, we'd been watching The Dragon's Den for a few years, and really we had this entrepreneurial generation coming into the universities and actually being a bit surprised as to how little the universities were prepared for that. The university is pretty slow reacting. Again, some talks, some workshops, some early stage business startup support, but very patchy from a university perspective. And what we really saw was the enterprise societies, the students just fixing it themselves. 3 years in university, you're not going to wait until your university sets up a business startup program. You'll just go do it yourself. And this is where we saw the growth of the enterprise societies in 2008. You can kind of chart them back to about late 90s or so, but only 2 did really well, Oxford and Cambridge. So those 2 brought in sufficient funding to actually run sabbatical paid presidents for the year. And they did business competitions awarding £20,000 on the Cambridge side. Oxford were doing their own incubation. They were using donors, cash, and college space to provide hot desking and incubation. And actually one of the great stories is that the first UK acquisition by Google was a company set up and incubated in the student-led accelerator at Oxford University. So the universities were developing slowly. They did find it quite hard to reach students, and as the European Union kind of picked up, actually far better to let students engage fellow students by doing their own activities, and in the European Union's term, unlocking the spontaneous initiative of students through enterprise societies. And really the value of societies is that they are more creative, they're more innovative, you get more for your buck than you would by getting a full-time paid member of staff to do activities. And they were just churning out really interesting programs. So I think we can go to the next slide. So NACUE was conceptualized late 2008. And really it was 12 presidents that came together, including Costa, Victoria from Oxford, who was the driving force, and a few others. And really, in the course of an afternoon, we realized that we all faced the same challenges, we all faced the same opportunities. It's very basic things that you need some training to make sure that you can run a society properly. You need guidance on how to approach corporates for sponsorship, guidance on how to interact with your university and position yourself as a trusted delivery partner for activities in the university. But more importantly than anything else, you need understanding of how to make sure your society survives year on year when you go and graduate. And this was the single biggest problem that university societies were facing. So a fairly kind of basic understanding of what NACUE needed to do from the onset was supporting the society presidents, connecting those society presidents and representing them to make sure that their work and their efforts was recognised and acknowledged by universities and by the government more broadly. We launched in May 2009, and we brought together the incoming and the outgoing presidents of every society in the country. At that time, about 45 or so universities represented. And really that became our flagship program. The skills training to make sure that they could run a society, the networking where they really got fired up between themselves. And they kind of went away after that weekend almost feeling like a bit of a cult. We had a bit of a cult following from there. Worked really quickly, so Victoria and I went full-time on it as soon as we launched in May 2009, and really spent a lot of time building the network quite aggressively, reaching out to every university. So within 3 months of launch, we were in 65 universities. By the end of the year, we were in about 75 universities of 120 or so in the UK. So really quite kind of speedy acceleration towards critical mass. And then we started to flesh it out a bit. So we needed to not only inspire and engage and fire up the presidents, but make sure that the team around them was also as keen, as passionate, and equipped to go out and inspire students in their own university. So we toured the country. We went to six towns and cities across the UK. We did committee training days. We made sure that the event managers knew how to run events. We made sure the fundraising managers knew how to talk to corporates and get in money. We made sure the kind of marketing managers knew how to reach students on campus, competing with every other distraction that students face at universities. The next step was to build out and reach the students themselves. So the following year we set up essentially the Student Enterprise Conference in the UK. We started small with 200 students. Now it's attracting 700 and 800 students a year. And that was really to engage the students within the societies and get them fired up and make sure that they've got the skills and the aspiration, the desire to start businesses. So over the course of about 18 months, we'd gone from nothing to actually engaging effectively a network of about 40,000 students across the UK. At the same time, we launched the varsity pitch competition, so business plan competition with £10,000 prize to students, and we started to play with commercial activity. We spent 3 months designing the Lloyds Bank Enterprise Award Scheme, a massive competition for student entrepreneurs where the grand prize was £50,000. We launched that set against a backdrop of all the other banks doing national £5,000 competitions. So that was kind of a fairly major initiative from us. We started to see international counterparts emerge. So we saw initiatives like CEL in Sweden, in Denmark, in France, in Spain, in China, India, Bulgaria, Estonia, where else? Denmark. Basically a nice network of organizations taking our kind of lessons and applying them, even in some cases taking our names, so NACUE Ethiopia and NACUE Germany, that we had nothing to do with at all, but it was fairly nice to see them doing it. And then at the same time, we started working on the policy and really warming up the government towards why enterprise societies are an amazing thing, why they are far more effective at engaging students at the local level, and why they need to be seen by the universities and by governments as trusted delivery partners and actually the most efficient way to fire up a new generation of entrepreneurs. Really, it took about 18 months to 2 years We were very lucky timing-wise, so launching in 2009, there was an election coming up in summer 2010. It was expected that the Conservatives would come in, taking over from Labour for the past 13 years, and really we were able to warm up the Conservatives while they were in opposition as to why enterprise societies are a good thing. When coalition came into being with Conservative government in 2010, we continued to engage them. We relaunched as a charity in early 2011, and the government announced their intention to fund. We spent 4 or 5 months negotiating with them, and we negotiated £3.5 million, which is around 4.8 million euros of funding over a 5-year period to support societies. It's allowed us to go from very lean, about a 5-strong team to a team of 20 within a 6-week period. We also took on the remit of working with FE colleges as well. So further education colleges, so more vocational courses, non-degree based qualifications. So from going from nothing with very lean operations, co-founders, we did 18 months without a salary to get it off the ground. Within essentially 2 years, we had secured government backing, and really it went mainstream. And at the same time, we were starting to be invited to the likes of the United Nations, World Economic Forum, European Commission. We were going for lunch with various princes in the royal family, and essentially, hopefully, achieving impact by that point.
So if we move on now to... Hello? Yeah. So if we move on to kind of assessing ourselves, what we think we did well and didn't do well, and how those kind of lessons went into Michael and the founding team of Cell, creating Cell, and how those lessons also helped Matt to start his next social movement. So, like I identified at the beginning, it's important to have a social need, and what we did well was we saw that social need. We saw what the environment was like before we landed. We came in at the right time where government was already thinking about it. Universities were starting to get enterprise on their agenda, onto their strategy, like US universities had already done so. And we found people like us. We found people like us in the sense of not just our founders, founding team or founding members, but we found staff that got what we were trying to do in the universities. We found partners in corporates that understood or got what we were trying to do, and wanted to affiliate themselves with us, or position themselves with us, or co-facilitate activities with us. And we basically built critical mass very quickly, in the sense of riding that wave, catching that wave, but riding it as well, and coming in at the right time. So from that, we were able to get key institutions on board, so key universities that were pushing enterprise, but even universities that were at the lower end of the rankings that needed something to help them stand out as well. And that helped us, because by getting universities on board like Buckingham University that focus and specialise in entrepreneurship courses, we were able to say to other universities, look, these XYZ number of universities support us, why don't you? And that really helped us to get the buy-in, to get the cultural buy-in. But it also helped us get the other organisations in our sector, because when you're building a social movement, you're building it in some sector that exists and already has some key players that are in there, some organisations that might do something slightly different to us. So we were in youth enterprise education, and we did some social enterprise activities, but we weren't the social enterprise organisation that you would go for funding. That was unlimited, let's say. And we tried to get them on board so that we could cross-promote their opportunities, but also collaborate with them. They would come to our exhibitions, we would go to theirs, we would speak alongside various partners, Because we're not, at the end of the day, when you're building a social movement and there are others in the marketplace, it's different than when you're building a tech business or something and you're trying to compete. At the end of the day, you want the people that you're engaging, you want them to have access to a load of different opportunities, to a load of different communities that get them. And if it's not tech, they've got a social enterprise focus, then it's your job as an enterprise leader to connect them to that. And it's one of the reasons that Cell is now engaging and talking with Reload Greece, which is its equivalent, because they see the potential to cross-promote or to collaborate or partner. So we saw that as well. So we also grew our remit, because when we started, it was about the presidents. We came together as 12 founding members, 12 presidents of 12 existing societies that were doing some great stuff. And as we moved on, we started to see that they also have teams. They have executive committees that can be between 10 and, I don't know, some of the big societies have got teams of 25 to 40 volunteers. So we started running regional training events for them. We started engaging students at a lower level, so running our own National Student Enterprise Conference, our own Start Career Launchpad event, running milk around events, which are trying to get small businesses to recruit from the enterprising market. So we were able to do that and to expand our remit and our reach in a way that created sustainable social impact and social outcomes. And as a result of all this, we built our credibility in the sector we were coming in. We saw at the beginning the best way to do this was to bring on credible partners already, credible advisors, people that got what we were doing or were about to do, and were happy to put their brand behind it. Were happy to sit on our advisory boards to give us their wisdom, because effectively most of us were, you're thinking 12, I think I was 21 or 22, and it was only Victoria that was 25, 26. And we don't have that experience. We've got that drive and vision and banging the drum kind of thing, and that's what the brands and the universities and saw and decided to help us. And so, as Matt was saying, we were campaigning and getting government support, and that really helped us to go to our next level. Next slide.
I'm going to just put a pause here.
Yeah.
Because I think that if there's one thing that this audience has in common is like their interest in building like a strong ecosystem. Mm-hmm. And we've spent like some time right now discussing about the role of universities. But I think before continuing in more structural discussions, I would like to open the floor to questions, because I recognize that there are a lot of players from the Cypriot ecosystem, not just from universities. We don't have a lot of universities here, but we have a lot of initiatives. And I would like to open the floor to questions to the guys that already started the movement in UK to see how can we, bring together the universities and all the rest. Do I have a question? Okay.
Is it working? Initially, I came here for another reason, because I'm building a startup, but for 4 years I was an active member of different societies in my university, and I kind of seen the lack of organization and the fact that students were rotating every semester, every year, and there was this main problem, like what do you think is the most important thing to do at first, before even discussing, partnerships with other companies, taking students in the industry and this kind of things? Is it like a good, strong guideline that they need to build, or what exactly is it?
Okay, so I'll start, because I think these two will also like to say. You're absolutely right. Every year there is an incoming and outgoing team. Some organisations have to elect and put it out to the membership, some appoint and run interviews, etc. But at the end of the day, you're in a youth-led movement, people get involved for all sorts of reasons to develop skills. It look great on their CV. They'll learn something. They'll meet great people, etc. But the critical success factor of any enterprise society, or club, or movement is thinking about succession from the beginning, thinking about the vision, what the vision is, and yes, it might be 5-year, it might be 10-year. Thinking when you're the founding team, thinking what you can achieve that's ambitious, but at the same time, even though you're at the start, thinking about who you're going to hire next, or who you're going to bring on board next, that is better than you, that can then grow, because there's a difference between a founder and a builder. And I think Victoria, our kind of main driving force, the key founder of NACUE, would describe herself as a founder, not a builder. She did build, but she then brought on board another CEO that could then grow that even further and commercialize and so on. So thinking about succession from the beginning, thinking about the different points that succession is part of sustainability. And we used to put in place sustainability models which would say you need a strong team, a strong advisory board, a strong set of partners, clear processes for succession. So documenting what you did this year. So let's say I was the marketing officer of your society. I would then write a document that says, this is what I did well. That's exactly what we do. What we did well, what we didn't do well, and what we could improve if we were to do it all again. And if I was the event manager and I was running this conference, I would write a document that would say, okay, this is what I would do 6 months before, 4 months before, 3 months before, 2 months before, on the day, after the day. You think after the day after an event, well, you've got photos to consolidate, you've got press releases to get out there, you've got case studies and videos to get out there, videos of all these sessions, for example, people that can't make it, and then handing over that handover process to the next team. Even though the conference might not be for another year, that's so important to do it now while the knowledge is fresh and while there are a bunch of people here that see the potential, then in 6 months' time that they might have forgot. So that's my take to it.
I guess, regardless of your achievements as president or as any other committee member over the course of a year, if that society then fails and falls over as soon as you leave, those achievements are worth nothing. So really the emphasis is making the case and helping the president and the founder of a society to take steps over the course of an academic year so it isn't a rush job while they're doing exams in May. Actually, they started thinking about things January or beforehand, and they wrote down all of these lessons over the course of the year rather than trying to figure out what on earth they've learned after 3 months of not doing anything during the exam period. So we developed some pretty basic guidance, well actually some pretty in-depth guidance that was for enterprise societies, but actually adaptable for any student club or kind of volunteer-led organisation at all.
And I would say it's not just the handover from the outgoing team to the incoming team, but also the involvement of the leaders that started this movement all the way through. So I've advised the last 8 presidents of Warwick Entrepreneurs, and now we kind of call it the Warwick Entrepreneurs Dead Presidents Club, and we support them in any way we can with our networks. We've all moved on and so on, and I'm at Warwick once a week advising the next team and handing over and sharing that knowledge and those contact base, and the people that came out of our society. I mean, Stephen from La Balle Assiette that spoke earlier, Gaston Chi, who will be speaking tomorrow, they were active members of Warwick Entrepreneurs, and for me to see them coming here and speaking is great. But at the end of the day, they were all in the same year, but there was then other entrepreneurs that are on that journey. And if we didn't put in succession processes and we support them from 8 years, now to 8 years ago, then that wouldn't exist, and that impact, that sustainable impact, wouldn't be there. That's important. If you want to say anything.
Let's move on to another question. Do we have another question? Yes.
Thanks for the good presentation. A very quick question. Okay, it's good to have fresh mind and clear mindset, but sometimes to solve a problem, you need to have at least some years of industry experience. How can you, what's your approach in that? I mean, young people have great ideas, but sometimes executability is a question mark. I like your initiative, to be honest, but I don't like the words accelerator and disruption. Acceleration, why? Don't rush things. The best things are achieved slowly, no? And also, disruption, I think, is a bad idea. The new trend is to collaborate and compete, not disrupt the market, because sometimes I did that in my first startup, and I smashed my face on the wall. Okay, the question is, how can you solve a problem without some years, 1 or 2 years industry experience?
Okay, firstly, you have to see if the industry experience is needed in some occasions. But even when it's needed, and it is needed most of the times, right, you make sure to get the right advisors on board. So the way NACUE worked since the first year, we had the student advisory board and you had a senior advisory board. And on the senior advisory board, you actually had people from Dragon's Den on that. And the CEO, right, and the team were consulting both. So they had both of the best world. So I guess you go hand in hand with what is already there, exploring new opportunities, solving problems this way. But let's not forget, although industry experience is important because it provides you with some knowledge of doing things, and empirical knowledge of how things were done in the past, right? There are always new ways to approach a problem, and market feedback is the best advisor of them all. So the best way is to go lean, is to go in, get some advice, test what is needed, and go back. Now, when it comes to, I'll go to the second part of the question if you don't mind. When it comes to disruption, disruption is not necessarily bad. Disruption infers higher risk, so the failure is going to be worse. But if you can disrupt something, a way of how things are done, and bring a new result in, it's great. The internet was a disruption. If you look at the newspapers back from the 1990s, there's a piece from The Sun that is saying worldwide what? And they were mocking the internet, but it changed billions of lives. And the same way, that's what NACUE did. Before NACUE, when it was founded in May 2009, you had various enterprise student societies that were running on their own. But after NACUE united them, they could act together, they could network together, they could lobby together, and it brought a collective result. And that was actually disruptive in the student world because it hadn't been done before. Do you guys want to answer?
I think on the disruption side, there is a need for speed. Particularly when building a social movement, you need to reach critical mass very quickly, and you need to prove why this movement is better than the status quo. And we faced very particular challenges in the UK, that there was a government-funded organisation that had been around for several years. They had very large budgets, supposedly engaging universities and failing. They'd spent a few million in 3 years attempting to do what we achieved in essentially a few weeks with £15,000. While we were building and while we were running 24/7 with no salaries for a year, this same organisation then took £1 million of government funding to deliver 50 events engaging 2,000 students across the UK university sector. You know, we were crying at that point because we knew exactly how much we could do with £1 million. So the need to accelerate that network, reach critical mass, prove our impact as quickly as possible, was to dislodge this type of government waste and prove ourselves, not only to government, but to corporates and to the universities, as to why they should be funding us to do exactly that for about a 20th of the price.
I'd just like to add just to your first question about experience. I don't reject experience because I think you need the youth to see the new way, but you need the years of experience that might have seen that new way already in the past and seen some lessons learned and so on. So we all, like Matt said, we always had, or Mike said, we always had experienced advisors right next to us. Our board of directors consists of at the time when me and Matt were there, it was like us two as the youngest, the operational executive directors, and then everybody else was like experienced, like above 40 years old, 40 to 70 years old, you know, going into government and pitching for funding and so on. Government didn't just look at us as youth. They saw that we were surrounding ourselves with experienced experts and so on. And so I think you need both.
Next question. I have one. Oh, you have one. I also have one. So.
Hi. Are you thinking of bringing NACUE to Cyprus?
Well, I should say, firstly, me and Matt stepped away from NACUE after 6 years. I moved on to working more in the digital sector, and Matt moved on to his next venture, social movement, which we'll talk about later. So I don't know if NACUE has plans, but I would think not.
I think we have a wonderful organisation here already.
Yeah, thank you. Now, I would say NACUE did start an international movement called ICUE, which was the International Consortium of University Entrepreneurs. So, like Matt was explaining earlier, in Finland and Denmark, these national associations, it was like a network of national associations, and we convened them twice or three times? Three times in London for like a 2-day roundtable sharing all those experiences. And in Cyprus, I think what CEL is doing is pretty short of amazing. I think CEL has the potential to be even better than NACUE. And I was honoured when they asked me to advise them on the same journey that we went through. And I try to help them at every stage, from, you know, Skype calls at 10 o'clock at night in the UK, with these guys working at 12 over here, and bringing some speakers, and I'm going to get more involved in nodes and putting together the training material for the nodes, since I can relate it to enterprise societies and the material that we used to do there. So so that's mine.
I will just add something, that CEL was actually, the creation of CEL was actually inspired from NACUE. And the talks to create CEL were actually, they started at an NACUE conference. And when CEL launched, we used a lot of NACUE documentation when it came to succession and other things to launch it. So actually,
It's kind of pre-incubated.
pretty much. So I would say that CEL has a little bit of NACUE in it. Yeah.
So I'll get to have my question. So I'm very troubled by one thing, from the road to universities we had with Cyprus, with all the collaborations we had. I'm sometimes really scared that we don't find a way in universities here in Cyprus, because maybe the problem is, like, most of us from CEL haven't been in universities in Cyprus, so we don't know the ecosystem over there. It's like we fail to inspire them in university to start their own societies. How can someone tackle that?
Well, for us, it was quite, I think we faced the same problem, but I think we saw critical mass. I think we were quite lucky that there was already a network there. Yes, they'd been falling over and failing year on year, but there was some interest, and I think the extent to which there are staff in universities promoting enterprise, once we'd won those staff over to the value of NACUE and how we reassured them that we were here to help them build a sustainable, high-impact society, we actually started getting recommendations from the staff. I think the other benefit we have in the UK is just the number of universities. Actually, we ended up having recommendations from society presidents in one university that know their friend in another university who wanted to start. So I think we basically reached critical mass in the UK, just given the number of universities that perhaps isn't achievable in Cyprus. I think you have to reach out directly to the students. I think you need to engage more students in events like this and then sell them the idea of the society. So we were lucky in being able to work as a bit kind of top down from the university down to students. And I think the reverse is true here. So engage the students directly and then try and encourage them to kind of take this conference back home to the university and build something locally.
And I would just add, I think the universities and the staff should come and talk to Sal and see what Sal can do, because like Michael said, Sal have been aligned with NACUE and have learned some of the things, Michael being a leader as well there. I really think change can happen, but everybody has to be open to that change. Just get around the table and bang it out and say, how can we work together?
Final question, and then we need to sum it up.
It's not a question, I want to make a comment. I would like to make a comment on what you just said, or the question you made. One of the reasons this might be happening is because entrepreneurship in Cyprus has been linked to high technology. If entrepreneurship is just pure entrepreneurship, then you might get more initiatives in the universities from students to participate. We've seen that, like I was at Junior Achievement right now. There were about 30 teams of high school students, 15 to 18 years old. So it means that I believe in the universities also you're going to find those students, but not in the way they perceive right now the entrepreneurial ecosystem. It has to be understood that entrepreneurship is something much bigger than just hack or technology or things like that.
I think that lesson needs to be learnt in the UK as well. Actually, looking at the most successful graduate entrepreneurs in the UK, very few of them have anything to do with technology. So in Scotland, you've got two co-founders who set up Brewdog, a multi-award-winning brewery, now selling in all the major supermarkets, in bars. They've got 10 of their own bars now across the UK. You've got Emily... it wasn't a university technically, but you've got Emily, somebody who set up Blaze, which is a new light for cyclists. You've got Jamie Murray-Wells, who set up Glasses Direct, mail order spectacles, cutting out the high street shops as well. So actually, when looking at non-tech startups from graduate entrepreneurs, you can actually find quite a few of them in the UK. And I think that story needs to be told more in the UK and probably here as well.
Great. It was really great having you guys. You will get the chance to talk with Kostas, Matt, and Michael. And you also have a speech tomorrow, Kostas, right? Tomorrow morning?
Yeah, we're running Networking on Steroids. If you want to see how we influenced and helped and built our networks like that.
Great.